Welcome back to the Authentic Human podcast. And I am so excited today because Kyle Meintjes is back. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you.
And we had such a great time in our last conversation, and it just naturally flowed. And, Kyle asked an incredible question last time. And if you haven't listened, it's episode 39, where we really got into understanding our own healing journey. But then Kyle asked this really cool question. He asked, how do you hold space for others who are going through their own healing journey? And I want to celebrate you for asking that question first and foremost, Kyle, because it's a it's the most poignant question that a human can ask right now at this time in evolution,
Mm,
because we're going through a massive transformation. Massive.
yeah.
We're going from a complete lack of consciousness to restoring our full human potential. And,
Yeah.
it's been going on for a couple hundred, well, it's been going on for thousands of years. But at the same time, we're in the pinnacle now where everything is
Mm,
shifting. It's going forward no matter if we're on board or not,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether we want to celebrate it or resist it, be angry about it, or be nervous. And, the greatest gift that we can give other humans is understanding how to hold space, because
Mm,
most of us don't know. And
yeah.
it's because we've grown up in a system that strategically taught us not to. It's
Mm,
really interesting. Every
mm,
system that Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating because you've got um, religion, you've got medical, you've got financial, and you've got the education systems. And every single one of those systems ensure that we do not hold space for other humans.
right.
And what I mean by hold space is, first, it's a question of recognizing their own wisdom and their inner significance, right? Because
Mm,
every human was created for a reason.
mm,
Every single human has their own, for lack of a better term, I'll use the word purpose. Okay. We all have a purpose. And what that means is we have a reason for existing, not just a reason for being. We have a reason for existing. So when humanity was being created. So this is really short version, okay? Obviously, a short version of creation. And that's the other thing is the versions of creation that are out there that we've been taught, whether through religion or
mm,
science, are both lacking in the
mm,
truth, one. And what happens is then we also get taught to believe that it's okay if there's big, huge gaps in the information, right? Like that's okay. Don't worry
right.
about
Right.
that. And
Yeah.
so, we find ourselves in relationships where someone's not saying something and we're used to that, right? We're like, oh,
Mm,
it's just a
mm,
gap in information. Oh, that's okay. No big deal.
mm,
Right? And
yeah.
especially when it comes to who we are, our relationship with ourselves, right? When there's this big
Mm,
gap, and we're still going on and on every day, right? A lot of that was reflected in our first conversation, the first part in episode 38, where we were talking about your life, your young, your teen years, your early 20s, where you're finding out who you are, and you're out in
yeah.
the world, and nothing feels good. On the outside, it
Yeah.
looks perfect because
Yeah.
we've worked really hard to paint that picture, but inside, we're struggling. And so many people are going through that. And this is why, is because even the story of our origins that is being painted either by religion or by science is not only lacking in truth, but there's massive parts that are just missing. And so
Mm,
for the last 20 years, my goal is who are humans? Why were we created? Why do we exist?
mm,
What are we meant to be doing? So
mm,
I've literally been studying the origins of humanity from the inside, right? Not from a scientific
mm,
perspective that says this is now. what is it based on this? Because
Mm.
you'll never be able to understand the origins if you're looking from only now.
Yeah.
And, from a religious perspective, there's it's interesting when I feel into the energy, it's like a lack of determination based on a lack of integrity because the world that we live in is deemed human separate from God.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
you need to go outside of yourself to find the answers when that's the complete opposite,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
heart of struggle is because people keep looking outside of ourselves and then we trust blindly based on
Mm.
that, right? Whether it's the
Mm.
medical system, right? I mean, how many times do we go to the medical system trusting that they're going to be the ones to help us because that's what it's been painted as. But
Yeah.
they're not looking. They're not looking inside. They're not looking for
Mm.
truth. They're looking to fix. And anyways, that's a whole,
Mm.
but it's a whole other conversation. But you can also see it's vital to
Mm.
understanding how to hold space for other humans. Because if
Mm.
you don't understand these foundational challenges and issues, there's no way you can hold space for that person to come back to who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
where so much of the spiritual world, I mean, the movement was in the right direction, but then also, there would be so many people would say, I found the answer. It's this modality or this modality. And it's exactly
Mm.
the same belief systems as the medical system and the religious system is here,
Mm.
use this system. My system will work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the whole point is every human in existence, okay, has a purpose, has a reason for existence itself. So when the creator was creating human souls, a soul would be created and then we would be out of balance. So he would create another soul to restore balance. And it would go
Right.
on and on and on because every time you create something, there's movement
Right.
energetically, universally. So we need to restore balance. Okay. So balance is a um, perfect alignment of energy on a
Mm.
personal, like an individual, global, and universal scale.
Mm.
It's really cool actually because I'm I'm teaching all about all of these nine energies that every human was created with. I'm teaching about these in a couple weeks, which is really cool because this will probably come out after that comes out. But
Okay.
yeah, but it's all in my book Believe. We have we have nine fundamental energies that every single human was created with. And balance is healing. And
Yeah.
that's what people
Yeah.
don't really understand is healing is about restoring balance.
Mm.
We're
I'm
not
so with you there.
broken.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
missing parts of ourselves, but we've been taught, right? And then it's
Yeah.
really, when people say, "Oh, that hurts me down to my soul." It's not hurting you down to your soul. Your soul can't be hurt. You're
Mm.
having an emotional reaction that is causing you to look at one of your beliefs so
Mm.
that you can realign your belief so you can come back into balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that was like foundational. I remember stumbling upon that at some point in my healing journey. Was like I was just writing one day, and it was like everything just kind of everything that I looked at, like every aspect of the healing journey, it came back to balance.
it's
It was
amazing,
like
eh?
yeah, exactly. But it's something this is something I've been reflecting on a bit recently. Is that like every time we're out of balance, we have to go back to the other side of the extreme to come back into balance, and I was seeing that on like a personal, on each level, on like a personal level, a societal level, a cultural level, that, yeah, whenever there's a fixation on one side, we're first going to test up the other side and then see that that's not it either. And then this is just how it's played out for me so many times. It's like every time something is released, like a belief that was bringing me
Yep.
out of balance, then, oh, okay, so it's this side. No, it's not that side either. And then balance happens naturally. I feel like through seeing that neither of those extremes feel aligned.
I love that explanation. I love, love, love it because That's it.
Mm.
When we're asking for awareness in an area, or we're asking for a change, a different experience in our lives. It doesn't matter whether it's, more money, more financial freedom, whether it's a deeper relationship with ourself, a deeper relationship
Yeah.
with our partner. We want to find a partner, whatever it is, we
Yeah.
want to find our purpose. We will always, what happens is your soul's always on your side, and the entire
Yeah.
universe is, and they're going to show you all the beliefs that are in the way that are blocking you from the thing you want the most. And
Yeah.
that's what you were just saying is, it's understanding that the extremes are going to come in because we're being shown
Mm.
how extreme our belief is and how it's damaging the actual
Yeah.
things we want most. So, it's crazy because our beliefs are what sabotages us, but we don't think about it that way because and and the one belief that I see people use the most is under the guise of keeping them safe. They need to protect themselves.
Mm.
They need to protect themselves from being hurt by other people, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or
Mm.
physically. And we were having a conversation right before we got on. And what was I talking about? Protecting myself, protecting my son, right? So, you
Yeah.
know, these are the ones that their currency we use the most, and we trade
Mm.
it off. And so we'll justify why we're not being, you know, a better person or acting with more integrity in our relationships because we need to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And that can be anything, professional, personal, your partner, in
Yeah.
whatever capacity. And so when we're holding space for other humans, we have to recognize that first.
Mm. Mm.
We have to recognize that this human in front of us was created for a reason, to
Yeah.
ensure balance in this whole entire universe exists.
Yeah.
Okay. And that their experiences throughout this life in particular have created an emotional foundation that determines how they're going to act and react
Mm.
to what information you have to share. Okay.
Right. Right. Yeah.
This is why most people want in relationships, intimate relationships in particular, is we just want to tell the other person what we see. And how many
Mm.
times do you hear people saying, "Oh, it's so much easier to see everybody else's stuff than our own,"
Mm. Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But we really suck at communicating it.
Yeah.
We suck at communicating. Why do we suck at
Yeah.
communication? Because we don't even know how to communicate with ourselves. There's no possible way that we can communicate with each other on a level of universal awareness and integrity. And
Mm.
really, that's what 2024 is about. That's, when they, infused purity in December of last year, the intention for the entire year is let's improve humanity's create communication with ourselves and with each other. So I love that
Right.
you asked that question, and that's how we support each other in our healing and transformation and restoring balance.
Yeah.
But number one is to allow the other person to feel, you want them to feel safe because that's what most
Yeah.
people are looking for.
Yeah.
And what is it that makes humans feel safe? That they feel heard and that they
Yeah.
feel seen, because most of us carry our
Mm.
burdens, right? We carry our emotional backpack with all of our challenges that we've had. And we we'll meet someone new and we're like, oh, what can I unpack from my backpack in front of this person? Like, what did they need to know about how much suffering I've endured, and how, because we
Yeah.
we identify as our burdens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah.
And we unpack them in front of everyone we meet. And so
Yeah.
if you can, so this is the difference. Like when I'm working one-on-one with someone, I don't waste time because
Mm.
nobody has time to waste. Nobody does. And
Mm.
I don't want to talk about someone's emotions because those are just what your reactions to what really happened. I want to explain what really happened right away, just like what we're doing
Right.
today, right? Which is
Right.
so super cool. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that that person feels seen and heard.
Okay.
So how do I do that? By first, I feel into their soul. Okay. So,
Yeah.
you know, the thing is, it's really cool because all the souls, like, there's so many beings here right now. There's a lot of, like, Jesus is here. There's a lot of universal beings, right? Because Jesus, really, of all the universal beings that I work with, he's the only one who's been human with such a
Right.
high mission, because his mission was, to come in and help humans remember who they are,
Right.
and restore their belief in themselves. But
Right.
it
Yeah.
backfired because, there were those who were on the other side who were like, okay, let's get them all to believe in Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so he was like,
And
okay, this isn't really working. I need to go now, right? Because
right.
humans, we resist believing in ourselves. We
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, right? When you
Yeah.
think about it and you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Yep, okay, that's great. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing I found with universal awareness is when they say something and all the, like, 50 questions I had about that dynamic, it's like, oh yeah, that's all gone now. It's just
Yeah.
one thing and you're like, right, okay. So,
Okay.
and you know, the other side, Jesus wants to say that, the Bible is a rendition of his experiences according to others. So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you go to, any different religious, and the Bible, this is the Quran, like all of the different belief systems have books, okay?
Yeah.
And they're all beautiful, but it's
Mm.
understanding that every single one is written on the beliefs, right? The perspective of the person witnessing the accounts.
Mm.
And the other part is they're sharing their experiences, but it's also a reflection of their emotional imbalance.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much filtering. There's so much filtering going on there. Like that. I was thinking recently a similar thing about Jesus and religion and all of that. That like the version of Jesus that we get through the books is so filtered. But I guess like the thing is, I think this ties back to what you were saying earlier. Like once we kind of stop looking outside in all these systems and realize that okay, it's here what we're looking for. We just have to keep going in. Then for me, like I could see that whatever Jesus was talking about, it doesn't matter how it was being filtered. It was like he's speaking from that same space. And then for me, it was interesting. Like it was I'm maybe going on a bit of a tangent here, but it was interesting because you mentioned Jesus.
Yeah, it's
Because like,
good.
yeah, I like for me, it was interesting how the evolution of like my perspective on all of that, where it was like initially, through all the dogma of religion and all of that, and then realizing, no, that's not right. Then letting all of that go, which served its purpose to find that, okay, it's here. And then realizing that, oh my gosh, yeah, Jesus was like an incredible, like what he was doing as a human was absolutely incredible, but it's not what everybody's displaying it through their own systems and whatnot. So
Yeah.
even me, I'm probably filtering it through my own stuff, but just that like resonance for me from the heart, like that's what I always feel from Jesus is that like whatever I'm not too sure, but I just, yeah, it's interesting how that perspective shifted where it was like I feel a strong connection to whoever that person was at the time, not so much with like people will go around saying how much they love Jesus, but then they'll be completely bullshitting the stuff he was saying.
And
Like,
there's like just spewing judgment, and you're like,
yeah,
hang on a
exactly. And
minute,
then
hang
like
on,
I
right? There's
feel
zero
like he
judgment.
got
And it's
yeah,
what's
yeah.
funny is when I first met Jesus, and he, we had a long, I mean, he's been working with me for 18 years as one of my um, guides, and he works with so many humans, right? Which is amazing.
Mm,
But because of what I'm meant to do, he's like, I'm the closest one who came and was working on that. But the, here's the thing, of those 9 fundamental energies that we were talking about in humanity, in each human, he governs one of them. So what I
all
mean by
right.
governs is he holds space for compassion in this universe.
Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, yeah,
Compassion, like you can feel it from head to toe. It's like,
yeah,
right, okay. So,
yeah.
that's who he is. That's what he does. That's how and why he chose to come and have a mission of helping humans restore
Right.
their awareness of who they are,
Yeah.
right? Because he has the ability to do that. Humanity wasn't ready yet, right? It's one of those,
Yeah.
nope, not ready yet, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's been, there's been a lot of people who want to be teachers. And the problem is if you want to be a teacher, you're going to fail.
Yeah. That's the wrong place to start from.
You can't teach. You cannot teach. This whole awakening journey is about holding space for others to feel and
Mm,
experience it themselves.
yeah.
And this is where, we're stepping into, right? This is what that shift, really the last 8 or 9 years has been going from a theoretical, a thinking civilization. And I'm
Mm,
talking like the entire planet civilization, not just one little ancient civilization,
mm,
but the ancient um, civilization of humanity. We're
mm.
taking it from a thinking because we were transformed into thinking based on this manipulation, which we're not going to get into right now because we honestly we'd be here for hours. But
Yeah.
it's understanding that that's being restored. And this is what people need healing
Yeah.
through. And what I mean by
Yeah.
healing again is help they're restoring balance, right? And
Yeah.
the balance line is going to change because every time you learn something, you're going to come a little bit further over and a little and I
Mm,
actually look at it as you go up because
mm.
every time you learn more, your awareness of existence itself expands. So that
Right.
means your understanding of, oh, that's why that person does this, and this is why I do
Yeah.
this, and this is why this is the way it is. When you can keep expanding that, you have more awareness, which means you
Yeah.
naturally will have more compassion. You will
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
right? All of these nine fundamentals. So, the nine fundamentals are love, truth, compassion, uh, respect,
Okay.
balance,
Okay.
movement, purity, joy, and illumination.
Okay.
And all of them are in my book Believe. It's like it's literally a guide to how humans were created, which is,
Right.
for
Right.
me, and then because we were coming back. So basically what happens is humanity went so far off the rails, okay,
Yeah.
that we needed an energy that could help us come back on. We
Right.
needed that assistance because this has never been done before. Number one, we'd never lost conscious awareness of who we are because this is the
Mm,
fifth experience of humanity. So in the first four, we never lost it. It just wasn't, there was no more potential for us to go. Like we didn't, it was a full stop, right? It was just like you were hitting your head against the wall, nothing else could be created. So we created this one. The thing is, so much more potential lies here, but we can't reach it in the state that we've come to because we've lost conscious awareness. So
right.
instead of, the creator, instead of just, ceasing to exist, he's like, I believe in humanity. We can come back from this.
Right.
We
Right.
need we need some facilitation though. So he
Mm,
created one energy, just one, and he created the energy of trust.
okay.
And that's the energy of transformation, which is exactly why I was saying
Mm,
when you
mm,
first
mm,
start to hold space for someone, they want to
mm,
feel safe, they want to feel heard. That way
right.
they can trust you.
Right. So you got to
Bec-
start with the foundation of trust. Yeah.
You got it. And trust is not here. Let me hear your whole story. Tell me all about it.
Yes.
Trust
Yeah.
is not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust is when you connect with a human who can feel and see inside of you, who has zero interest in you being anything other than who you are, who has zero
Mm,
interest in you doing anything different than what you've done,
mm,
that
yeah.
they're 100% willing to recognize really the joy in everything that you have done and experienced, no matter how
Right.
uncomfortable, ugly, bad, dark you
Mm,
think it is, it's not.
mm,
Because
mm,
humans don't do bad things for no reason.
mm, mm.
We do
Yeah,
bad
exactly.
things because of those four systems that put things into place that go against human nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
period.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, the number one group of humans who suffer the most are the ones who have had to endure the most hideous, and when I say hideous, rules and regulations, because every country, almost, has military.
Yeah.
Every country. And the military is based on two very basic things that go against human existence, and yet they feed it. So they're the two principles are humans hunting other humans
Mm,
and humans being hunted by other humans.
right.
How can you not be mentally, emotionally, and physically
Mm,
damaged?
mm,
Okay, now that's the extreme. And why I'm using the extreme is because I feel like you're also getting the understanding of how that will then play out in everyday
yeah.
life. Because we talked last time, and 90% of the planet have some form of PTSD or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily as extreme as that, but it's important to understand why bad people do or people do bad things. They're not bad people. It's that their belief system is so
Mm,
connected to
mm,
an emotional imbalance that
mm.
they can't find their center or their core anymore.
Yeah. 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 And they're no longer acting from that space of like,
Nope.
in a whatever you want to call it, intuition or whatever. It's like now it's reacting from that space of the trauma. And then it's just kind of, uh, passing it on to the next person, probably.
100%. That's
Yeah.
and then you're acting from a place of trauma. And then you're now
Mm,
propelling trauma into the world, right?
mm, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying, it's something that feels, I think, do you know Ajashanti at all? I don't
Nope.
know. It's something, it's like acting from a place of inner separation is kind of one of the key, like I feel like that kind of is another way of talking about it. It's like once
Yeah.
you realize that there's no longer that inner separation, then you're able to no longer perpetuate that, because like you said, everybody has it. Then you're able to no longer perpetuate that PTSD onto everybody else.
Yes.
But it's like that inner brokenness, and not knowing our connection to source, and then and then that, because you're unconscious, you're like completely unconscious. That's the thing. Yeah.
That's the thing. And
Yeah.
that's how it becomes generational, right? Like
Yeah.
we're right now, we're about 12, 15 generations deep in our shit, really. There's no
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
nicer way to say it. So it's so many layers thick now that it's literally like anytime you want to see one thing, you've got to
Mm,
shovel so much stuff out of the way to get to
mm,
that one thing. It's a lot of work. And this is why
mm.
most people don't want to do it because they know as soon as you start moving that stuff out of that
Yeah.
pile,
Yeah. You're scared
stuff
of
is
what's
coming
under.
to the
Yeah.
surface and it's going to come up. And that's, you're going to have to question everything. And it's scary.
It's so true.
It's
Yeah.
scary because, the number one thing is what if what I find I don't like? What if I
Yeah.
don't actually like myself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying because that's how it feels when you start to go in and you start to look deep. And, it's really cool because I've been doing this for 20 years with people one on one. And what I love and what they're showing me is the pattern is always that deep fear of, okay, what are we going to see this week, Michelle?
Mm,
Always. Because when we're coming closer to a new truth being revealed, we're really uncomfortable.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the most discomfort comes right before we see it.
Yeah.
And we're really good as humans that the more uncomfortable we get, our go-to is, let's just fix this. Let's pretend it's not here. So let's go, to the
Mm.
movies, or let's go out with friends, or let's
Yeah,
start a new
yeah,
project that's going to take me 6 months so I don't have to
yeah,
look over there, or let's
yeah.
get a drink, or let's get high, or all of the things, right?
Mm.
Again, it's the same dynamic. Let's
Yeah,
not be present.
yeah. It's
Let's
just it's distract. Yeah,
give my brain something else to focus on of
yeah,
value so I can justify why I'm not going to let myself see this truth because I can't right now because I'm too busy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
But we
Yeah,
justify the busy, right? We're
yeah,
fascinating at this. And at
yeah,
the end of the day, it's being able to feel the other person first and foremost. So you want to cultivate your own ability to feel yourself and
yeah.
your soul, and recognize the difference between your soul and your emotions. So that's the
Right,
difference and I talk about that a lot, is the difference between feelings and emotions. Because feelings are not what we've been told. Those are emotions.
right.
Feelings are what the energy is saying. There's only one truth. Either we're getting it or we're not, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if we're not getting it, it's because we're caught up in our emotions. So we need to sit back. And what they're showing me now is a number one, like an awareness, so to speak, of how do you know if
Mm,
you've gotten to the truth or not, is if you're justifying in any way at all, you're not at the truth yet.
mm,
Right? Whether we're justifying our behavior, we're justifying the other person's behavior, we're justifying the experience, whatever it is, doesn't matter. If there's any justification, and the antidote for that is actually purity, which is really cool. That being said, I know this is like a crash course of 20 years of everything I've learned. And so,
I'm just putting it into like the yeah, because I feel like obviously we'd all have different like because it's all like labels in the end. But I'm seeing like where what you're
mhm,
talking about resonates with the stuff that I've come across, and then like okay, this slots in there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's cool because we've all been learning from different sources, different
yeah,
methods.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's where I went, okay, because they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me read anyone else's books. They wouldn't let
right.
me
Yeah,
work with
yeah,
anybody else. They wanted to make sure that the information I got was always direct from all the universal beings,
right.
right? Like if I want to learn about compassion, I'm going to hang it with Jesus and he's going to explain it to me. And he's going to
Right.
show me where there's a gaping hole that compassion should be,
Yeah.
in a relationship or in my relationship with myself or in my work or whatever it is. And so that's how I learned from the source in the universe. So
Yeah.
just like Jesus embodies compassion and he holds that space for the entire human existence to experience that, but it's also the entire universe. That's how important every human is. It's
Mm,
just we all have a different energy that we're holding
mm,
space for.
mm. Right. Right.
Okay. So that's like when you can honor the person that's in front of you is a soul with an important role. The important thing to remember, though, is our purpose and role on a universal level is not a job description like most people are expecting,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not like Jesus does, they don't say, okay, your role is compassion and this is what you need to do.
Right.
And this is the role descriptions and these are your objectives, right? Like when you think
Mm,
about, a job description, that's how it comes across. And
mm.
because we've been trained in that world, we expect it to look like that. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not how it
exactly.
is.
That's what we're looking for, like through that filter of like, oh, okay, this
Yes.
is this is how it should be. Yeah,
It's fascinating,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And so what you want to be looking for is your ability to feel. And,
yeah,
we navigate feelings through those nine fundamental energies that I talked about before.
yeah,
They're universal and they're in every single human. We have
yeah.
access to them all at all times, and anything and everything that we want to create to contribute to the purpose and intention of this universal experience, which is evolution, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like there is, like, we're meant to continue to evolve. What does that
Yeah.
mean? That means we're here to play, we're here to
Yeah.
explore our potential, and we're here with zero limits.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm with you.
right? So when we go, okay, so the bank over here says there's this limit, this limit, this limit. The education over the system over here says,
Mm,
oh, you can't do that. This is a limit here. There's a limit here. Oh, and the medical system, oh, this is the limit. And that's your red light indicator that goes, oh, this is not aligned with who we are as
mm,
humans.
right.
It's
Right. Yeah.
it's a system where our beliefs became put in a little box.
Yeah. Yeah. That there's a limit. Like this ends here.
You
Yeah.
can't feel inside the box because they don't want you to feel. Because if you feel, you won't be stuck inside the box.
Right.
And that's really what, 2024 is about, is communication with
Yeah.
ourselves. We don't
Yeah.
we don't naturally think. We're not meant to. We're meant to feel.
Mm,
And the
mm,
brain is is really cool. It's like this reactionary to our feelings that shows us the experience. That's it. We
mm,
have the experience
mm,
first, though, in feeling. And then the
mm.
brain is like, oh, isn't that cool? What just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so with you there. Yeah.
You feel that, right? You get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like another way that one of my previous teachers would put it, Angelo, I mentioned him a bit last time, Angelo Zululo, he was like by far the most helpful for me. And he would always talk about the mind and thoughts as a reflection of reality, right? So it's like it's not actually what's happening at all it is a reflection in this, like, and then and then each thought is like a reflection of a reflection, and then we get so lost in that world that we're completely disconnected from
Yeah.
what is actually here. And then, like, I feel like that ties in as well with the way to,
Cool.
yeah,
It's cool because I'm feeling what you're saying. And yet, and what I'm feeling is it's less of a reflection and more of an interpretation.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like a reflection into this
Yeah, I get
this
it.
other this other world. And then, like, if we think of like how the thought stream works, it's like now that thought is like reflecting that thought, and then we so disconnect. Like for me, that's where, like, sense, like if we talk about feeling, like
Yep.
truth, you come back to sensation. You got to come back to
Feeling.
the the feeling, exactly,
Period.
right? Because
Yep.
there's no, and without interpretation, like what's there before interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the cool thing with all of these, with all the nine energies, whenever you're using them to guide you and feel through, right?
Yeah.
When you hit on it, it's like a punch in the gut. And what I
Right.
mean in the best way, not like,
Right.
oh, but it's like, oh, I felt
Right.
that. Like all the pieces just fell into place. I see all the discomfort. I see all the potential, everything at the same time. Then you know you've hit
Right.
truth. If you're
Right.
only in that, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. You didn't get the whole truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's, yeah. So
So
really our job, what were we going to say?
I just had like a couple of questions that have been building up about the kind of holding space thing. So
Well,
when,
okay. So give me 1 second because
yeah, yeah,
that's the
yeah.
whole point of finding space, which is really cool, is you're giving someone else the opportunity to feel to get to the point where they can feel the truth
Right.
of their situation.
Right. Yeah.
So humans learn through experience,
Yeah.
not through knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge
Yeah.
is just a bunch of stuff we know. We
Yeah.
don't learn unless we have the exact experience.
Yeah.
So, this is where there's junkies, there's knowledge junkies, there's spiritual junkies. Doesn't
Mm,
matter which realm you're, whether in science, you want to
mm,
read as much as you can. It's like, oh my gosh, give me all the information, give me all the information. Unless you're allowing for the experience to occur based on this new information you have taken in, you're not going to learn
mm,
anything, which means you create zero wisdom. You are
mm.
literally a person walking around with a bunch of knowledge, which is really just a bunch of stuff in your head.
Yeah.
It means
Yeah.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
And And yet, if you look at it, the education system taught us to value that approach to life and existence. Why?
Yeah.
Because we're going to give you a degree. And the longer you live that way, the bigger the degree, the more valuable you are.
Mm,
You're going to get
mm,
a
mm,
doctorate. Do you see what I mean? So
mm,
the
mm,
more you immerse yourself in that, our world has strategically praised that behavior. Isn't that fascinating?
mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's so shoved into you, like from the moment you start,
Yep.
the moment you have like in a world where you can process and stuff. That's like all the input you're getting is like the more you know, that's success. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the
Yeah.
crazy thing is, we have come to this place, not everybody, but for the most part, society says education is a privilege.
Mm,
And
mm,
how many people strive towards it and also feel like a failure if they don't have it,
yeah. Yeah. I feel
right?
like I feel like in that topic, some level of education is necessary to be able to work in the system and change it, if that makes sense. Like because of the way
Yes,
the system current,
to a certain
yeah.
degree. Well, no.
Like if you don't think so, like
No, well,
if we,
it's not me because I'm
oh
not,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
showing me right now. See, so you ask a question, and
yeah,
even though it's opposing like, this is how the best information gets extracted from the
right,
universe
right,
is we have these conversations where we keep going. So what they're saying is the illusion of needing to know a little bit is the most dangerous belief
right, okay,
because it propels us down the wrong road in the first place.
right,
Because
right,
humans naturally know how to survive. They know how to exist. They know how to learn. They know how to thrive
mm,
in
mm,
every environment known to man.
right,
They don't need to be taught. They will figure it out because we are brilliant.
yeah. So then my question would be, how would like someone like you, like you're able to communicate these universal truths if you kind of grew up in an environment where you had, like, let's say you were very, I don't know, I'm just trying to
Yeah, yeah.
think of an example, like grew up in the desert and you did all the human things. Like the truths that you came across then wouldn't be able to be related in like a podcast on the internet.
Okay, so here's a really cool thing. So when we're a soul, okay, planning this life, we
Yeah,
stack the deck in our favor. We
right.
make sure we're living in the physical correct location to fulfill our soul purpose. We choose our
Yeah,
parents, whether they are going to be our parents for our whole life, whether we're going to be adopted, whether we're going to move
right,
into a
right.
different, every one of those experiences are preordained.
Right.
And we choose our race, we choose our um,
Yeah.
gender, we choose everything
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that our it's based on, okay, it's also important to understand our choices are not based, and this is the part where most people have a really hard time understanding this because we think that universal beings are thinking how we think.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah. I'm with you.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like it was funny. I remember when I first wrote my book, Believe, the first review ever on Amazon said it was great until she professed to know the mind of the creator. Well,
Okay.
first of all, the creator doesn't have a mind. It's
Yeah.
energy and it's open to everyone. Nothing is hidden.
Yeah.
But the fact that we've been trained to believe there's information that's hidden and we're bad and that
Mm,
we are going to be suppressed, that's a major issue. So it's a
mm,
perfect
mm.
example. So for me, my journey was it's fascinating. Like, it was simple. It was very, I was in the 70s. So, life was different then. We had a, a, a degree of freedom in Canada at that time, for sure. Um, it was life was clearly much simpler. So that was the right time for me to come in to understand before technology as opposed
Mm.
to and see the changes from technology, right? Like so many people are
Yeah.
talking about that. Even Oprah's talking about that right now, like how technology is having an effect on our youth and ultimately our future, right?
Yeah.
So, I had those experiences. I had experiences with my father and my mother that were predestined to help me understand who I am. Were they all
Yeah.
great? No, they weren't all great.
Yeah.
But I also went to high school. I never even, like, I didn't even finish high school.
Right.
I went into working right away. I don't know if I finished it or not. I think I finished, but I never went to graduation. It wasn't important to me. Like, it really
Yeah.
wasn't important. And of course, I was judged significantly by that by certain people, especially those people who value education as
Mm,
something you
mm,
do, and you're more valuable if you do it. But it
mm,
didn't matter because for me to do what I do, if I would have gone to post-secondary education, I would have used words that were not as simple as the words that I use now.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have tried with my brain to overcomplicate it. So there was a
Mm,
strategic reason. But I was also, from the time I was 13, all the way through until I started this, in 30 years, I was doing operations management for huge companies. And every single one of my roles was overseeing or being in customer service.
okay.
What do you learn in customer service? You learn about humanity, and it is a
Yeah.
front row seat.
Right. Right.
And operations management, understanding how things run. I mean, I was operations for a multi-million dollar company when I was like 23. And I'll tell you, there was a lot of 50-year-old men in that company and they were resentful. So what did I have to do? I had to learn how to deal with that judgment and clear and extreme sexist judgment at that time, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
we have the experiences that we're meant to have.
mm,
And every one of those is designed because we're already fulfilling our purpose, even though our brains don't see that.
mm.
We're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
already learning everything we need to learn. Even though, my world didn't open up again till I was 29, it was happening. It
Yeah.
didn't open up consciously, but it was still happening, right? It closed by the time I was 13 and then opened when I was 29. So for those
Right.
16 years, didn't mean I wasn't doing anything. It meant everything was still happening, right? Those were my
Mm,
customer
mm,
service. Those were my learning about self-respect. Wah, right? I did not
mm,
grow up in a world where we were talking about our bodies and, sex and all of those things. And it caused me into my early 20s to do in late teens to do things that, you know, they used to make me cringe. They don't anymore because at the end of the day, I didn't know better. And now I understand,
mm,
but I had to
mm,
go through them
mm.
so that I could hold space for
Yeah.
under for
That's
others.
exactly it. It's like at the time, and looking back, it can seem like, okay, sure, that wasn't in balance, but it's an experience to be able to now, you know, really fill into that same space for somebody else
Yeah.
that's there. For me, the same with the illness space. Like, sure,
Yep.
theoretically, I made many mistakes along the path, but it's like that experience informs the kind of
Yeah.
how you can actually fill into that with another person. Yeah.
And they're not mistakes. They're experiences you had to learn,
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
cultivate wisdom, right? And
Exactly.
that's 100%. And
Yeah.
so that's important to understand that whatever your purpose is, it's going to be wrapped up in the things that make you the most uncomfortable. When
Right.
you look back at your journey, all those moments where, like when your girlfriend said to you, "What do you want? What do you
Mm,
want from
mm,
life?"
mm,
That moment was a poignant moment for you. And it was, I don't know. I
mm.
don't know.
Yeah.
And yet, every moment of your life was taking you towards that moment, and every moment
Yeah.
since has been propelling you forward. So
Yeah.
everything like that is linked. Even the things that we don't think are massive, they're all massive.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
But it's not taking the emotions and getting out of balance there and going, oh my
Mm,
gosh, here, let me carry this burden. Now seeing it as a
mm,
burden. None of
mm,
our experiences are burdens.
mm.
And this is where, yep. There's a lot of trauma out there. There's a lot. I've had a lot. I've had my fair share too. But the reality is, if I carry it as a burden, then I don't heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
heal.
Yeah.
I don't get to fulfill my purpose. I don't get to discover my potential. And I don't get to contribute to evolution because
Mm.
I'm sitting here carrying trauma. And when
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
that, right? You just
Yeah.
let it go. And that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
difference. That's the difference between people who leave this world through disease and through anger and resentment to the people who are going to restore fully conscious awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that point because it's like it's when we're like this separate identity, like when we're identified in the mind, then we've got that whole story of our trauma. And for me, that's it comes from like it gets on one level the fear of the fully feeling like that's why we would need to carry it as a burden. It's like once we truly acknowledge everything we're feeling, like all of that kind of going back earlier to like that feeling like we're not good enough, like that shame that's at the core. Once we've
Yep.
kind of really felt that, then there's no need, like then there's no need to carry any burdens because it's like the only reason we needed to carry a burden was so that we could not fully feel that like at its core because we were
100%.
afraid of it. It's like it's going to be too much, it's going to overwhelm me, and it is because it overwhelms the mind identity, right? Until that
And
just
that's the
kind of
point. It's
yeah,
supposed to,
exactly,
right?
exactly, yeah.
Yes. Like shame is the best tool
Yeah,
ever. When you feel shame, when you get to that place where you feel it, like that is where that's that the dark night of the soul. It's the deepest
yeah,
part where you're like, whoa. And it's
yeah,
in that exact same moment that transformation occurs.
yeah,
If you let
exactly,
it,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
go to the other side to go, okay, so who do I want to be now? Now that I know that and that dynamic, what
Mm,
did I learn and who did I become as a result?
mm,
And now you're
mm.
stronger. And when we hold that space for other people to go from the emotional trauma, right,
Yeah,
to recognition that what's the deepest, darkest shame aspect of that, right?
yeah,
To understanding that what did you learn? What did you learn
yeah,
from that experience? And that's that moment where you let it go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because there's nothing to hold on. Like you
It's
don't,
gone.
it's gone because you felt it, right? Because you've actually allowed it to.
Yep.
Like for me, this is just one way it's come up in the mind is that it's like you're no longer blocking that flow of that kind of energy, whatever what that
And that's the
it's
most
just
exhausting part is
yeah,
holding it
yeah,
back, right? Like, I don't want to
exactly,
see it.
right?
It's going to be uncomfortable. I don't want to see it. I
Yeah,
don't want to feel it. I don't want to know what's there. When
yeah,
really it's just that shame.
yeah.
And when you allow yourself to see it, it's freedom on the other side. It's pure
Exactly.
freedom,
Because there's nothing you need to keep hidden from yourself anymore.
right? And
It's
you don't have
like,
to
yeah,
carry it. You don't have to
yeah,
hide from it. You don't have to work. Like that's, yeah. And yeah,
yeah,
it's magic. That's,
yeah,
and it is and it's not. It takes a lot of work, but
mm,
it feels like magic because it is instantaneous. And
yeah,
that's how it's always been meant to be. It's
mm,
trusting the process
mm,
and being able to recognize, okay, wherever you're having the biggest emotional reaction is where you want to look, right?
mm,
And some, yeah, I'm just feeling into it's really cool because I'm feeling into how I do it, but now I, I'm like that's great. But in order for other people to do it, how does that work? And what Jesus is going to talk again because again, he's the master of compassion. So he's the
right.
one who's here to guide us through this process. So the cool thing is the best thing ever is when you're going to hold space for someone else, right before you're going to start that conversation, Jesus, can you give me a hand here? And he's
Mm,
like, right there. Like he's for
mm,
everyone. The coolest thing about a universal being is we can be everywhere at once in any given moment because time and space doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So if the entire population of the earth, 8 billion plus people, say in the exact same moment, Jesus, can you give me a little bit of help over here?
Yeah. There's no,
We're all going to get it.
it's not a
There's
finite
no limit,
resource.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
goes back to
Yeah.
what we were talking about. There's zero
Mm,
limits.
mm,
So,
mm,
and there's so many people who are like, well, is he going to show up for me? He will
mm,
always show up if you ask. Every universal being always shows up if you ask. That's why
mm,
when you're going through something and you ask to see the truth, and then all of a sudden it feels like crap, it's not
mm.
because they're giving you crap. It's because you need to see that dynamic that you're carrying that's blocking you from the actual freedom you want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
holding space is about walking people through that awareness that A, they're incredibly important and valuable to the entire universal and human experience. B, that they are heard and they're seen, and how they feel is important, but their emotions are what's defining their experience. So, how they feel is important. So, that's the truth.
Mm,
That's where you're going to find the shame. Their emotions are holding the trauma and the beliefs around what that shame means for them going forward. That's why they
mm.
stay in the emotions because they don't want to, they want to hide from the feelings, which really you
Yeah.
want to walk them through, right?
Yeah. So that's a question that I was just as you were talking that was coming to mind because I feel like that's one of the things I've encountered. And it's amazing as the process deepens for me. It's these kind of things just fall away because
Yep.
each meeting with somebody is a learning experience, and then that's kind of integrated the next time I meet somebody,
One,
But
I, honestly, I have worked with people from 5 continents, 50 or 60 countries all over the world. And every single time I learn something.
yeah,
I
exactly.
learn about humanity. I learn about existence. I learn about
Yeah.
creation and evolution. And, it's awesome because it's a
Mm,
constant reminder that we really know nothing about this
mm.
world we're living in.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know the physical world that we've been taught to believe in that little box. We know that world well. But what's
Mm,
outside of it, the truth, we know
mm,
very little.
mm. And partly, I would say partly because it's not in that known realm,
Well,
because
they
it's
blocked it strategically. So
right,
it's a
right,
strategic setup, which is exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this masterclass next Wednesday. It is literally strategically been set up to block us from our own self-awareness. Because if
right,
we
right,
keep thinking how they want us to think, we won't remember who we are. If we don't remember who we are, they can continue to manipulate us and do
right.
whatever they want. But if we
Yeah,
remember who we are, which is ultimately
yeah,
why I wrote the book Believe in the first place, because they were
yeah,
like, you're going to write a book. And I was like, I don't know how to write a book. I didn't even finish like high school, right? It was not.
yeah,
And then I told some family members, and again, so this is all the beliefs, right? And of course,
yeah,
I had different family. Well, did you get a book on how to write a book? No.
yeah,
Do I need that? Took me
yeah,
5 years to get the guts up to write that book. And I wrote a whole bunch of different books thinking, okay, well, I have all this information. I've been exploring the universe for 10 years already. Let me use this. And every time I'd read it, I'm like, nope, that's not it.
yeah,
And, friends of mine lent me their cottage for a week, and I went up to the cottage, and in 5 days, I wrote that book. How did I write it? Because I sat down and I went, okay, show me. And every
yeah.
day they taught me more about humans, who humans were created to be.
Right, right.
It was the most fascinating exploration I had ever done at that point in existence in my
Yeah,
life. And to understand who humans were, who humans are, who we're created to be. But it's not a book that is a knowledge-filled book. It's an
yeah,
energy book. It's based on
yeah,
universal energy. So every time you read it, you're going to, because every time your awareness expands, you have more awareness to take in, right? Your perspective expands. So now you can
yeah,
take more in. And so, and this is, it's crazy because so many people, they have it on their night table because it's literally one of those books that you can pick up and read over and over again, or pick it up if you're, wanting to work on some aspect, right? And
Mm,
why I'm sharing this so in depth with you now in relation to what we're talking about is when you understand the reason for creation itself,
mm,
the creation of humans and how we were meant to exist in the world, then you can hold space for others to heal. You cannot
right.
hold that space if your beliefs are not aligned
Right.
with the
Okay.
fullness of who humanity is. You can only help them restore balance to where you're restored.
Yeah,
And
I can
that's
feel
the
that.
journey
Yeah.
that I went on was, okay, well, let me go as far as I possibly can because I wanted to hold the best space that I possibly could.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
And it's been a 20-year journey of continuously doing my best to be the the best version of me and not, the best version of who I'm comfortable with. It's more getting rid of all the beliefs that don't align. And the tricky thing is as you go through that, friendships go, family relationships go, they fall to the sides, they
mm,
change because
mm,
our perspectives expand. Who we be
mm.
in the world changes. And it
Yeah.
doesn't always align with those relationships. But it doesn't mean that they're not aligning forever. It just means right now, I have to keep going in this direction. I have to go over here. And you don't have to come with me. I'm not going to close the door. We talked about this as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's interesting, and I've got some recent experiences that align with that as well.
Right. And it's
Yeah,
cool because it
yeah,
doesn't mean I'm going to
absolutely.
close the door forever. It just means I need to stay over here because
Mm,
I know, I know instinctively that my soul is telling me this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I need to
mm.
learn. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
the defining right
yeah,
now. And that's where so much struggle is people are
yeah,
having a hard time thinking they're walking away from relationships. You're not. You're not walking away from anything. You're walking
yeah,
towards the divinity of what your soul knows and what you know is best for you.
yeah,
And just let yourself embrace that, right?
yeah,
Let the fear of what that other person's thinking, you're not hurting them. And that's the
yeah.
other part is if you stay in a relationship or in a dynamic longer, that's going to create more damage than
Mm.
walking away.
Yeah, yeah, I can like it's so funny that this comes up now because it's exactly the thing that's happened like over the last few days for me is this I'm staying in a different place now than I was last time.
Oh
And
gosh, I love that. Yep, happens the way it's meant to.
no, absolutely. And but here's the thing, like it would have it's exactly every thing we've been talking about, right? It would have seemed from the initial perspective like it was cutting ties and leaving behind. But the funny thing was, so like some like conflict arose, and it forced me to take action, which I wouldn't have done if the conflict hadn't arisen.
You got it.
And then, but then the funny thing was like this is for me what is so interesting is that from my mind's perspective, it was like, oh, I'm staying in this for them. But the funny thing was, then when that whole situation happened, and okay, I made the decision to leave, then it was so clear how this was exactly the right thing for the other person as well. And I could feel like everybody's energy, like that was involved in this situation, was kind of playing out so that this would happen. And then I could feel once it happened, everybody's energy, everybody was kind of comfortable with that.
Relieved.
This,
The pressure
yes,
was
exactly,
relieved. Yes.
exactly, right. And but
Right?
the funny thing was, if you'd asked anybody beforehand on a mental level, everybody would have said, no, 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 that we don't want that to happen. But yeah, and I didn't even talk with the people like
Yep.
in this
You
way,
just felt it.
but
You knew.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like this,
That's the
and
feeling you
yeah,
want to hold when you're holding space for other humans. The same thing,
yeah,
pal. You're already doing it. Right? And
yeah,
that's the cool thing. Oh my gosh. It's brilliant. Like
yeah,
it yeah. I mean, for most of my life now, the last 20 years it's been just me and then my son came into the world and he's 10. It's been just him and I because where I'm going and where I've been and where I explore on a regular basis. I mean, I told you a little bit before we even got on the call.
Yeah.
It's so far outside of most people's belief system
Yeah.
that they can't exist while still being calm inside themselves. It makes them so
Mm.
uncomfortable. Like, what are you seeing about
Hmm.
me? What are you,
Mm.
So they
Yeah,
keep
I'm so
me,
with you. Yeah.
right, they keep me at arm's length. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it used to bother me. And even this morning, I'm like, okay, guys, like I'm going to need, because this exploration that is coming in now, I was like, I'm going to need a human who I can talk to about this because this is just
Mm.
so big. And it's defying. And when I first started, it's defying so many belief systems that I just want someone to hold my hand. Because when I
Mm.
first started 20 years ago, I had that. Um, and that person has since passed away and
Right.
like 17 years ago. But more importantly, what I then realized after was, nope, you're going to keep going, you're going to keep doing this by yourself because it's what I'm meant to do right now. And it's
Mm.
not that
Mm.
I'm doing it alone, it's that I'm doing it so everyone else can remember. And that's
Mm.
more important than saying, I need one person to help me get through this. That's the
Right.
drama side, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When the bigger picture is, if I'm here to help humanity restore their potential, well, they have to know
Mm.
what their potential is. They have to remember who they
Mm.
are. And
Mm.
the one thing that I have hidden from for the last 20 years is what caused us to need to run and hide. What
Right.
caused us to hide and not know who we really are? I've hidden from that because it's dark, it's scary, it's ugly, and there's a lot of theories about it that are not accurate. And so that's the other part is how we were talking before. We get the experiences we have the ones we're meant to have. So the last 20 years of the craziest stuff that I've seen and heard and done has made me strong enough to do this without
Yeah.
emotional distraction. I have not met another person who I could talk to about this who won't get into either a limiting belief system or an emotional reaction where it's like, whoa, okay, well, ooh, and that will be
Mm.
fear or something will come up. I've
Mm.
learned how to navigate all of that and go in without it, with like
Mm.
literally free of it, so that, but again, there's still the parts on the outside before I go in. That's where mine
Mm.
are. And that's where I was like, I need a friend to do this with. And they're like,
Mm.
so, this is what played out in the last 6 hours,
Mm.
as me saying, I need a friend to coming to that place. Nope. Nope, you don't. You don't. That's just
Mm.
again, that's a justification of why I'm not going to do it. And
Right.
it's been
Right.
like 6 months of them pressing in on me with this new awareness. And I'm like running for cover, staying busy over
Right.
here, doing this, doing that. And then your outside world starts to crumble. All the foundation that
Mm.
you set, right? Things don't work anymore. You can't
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
anymore. Can't live in this way anymore. Like it starts to crumble
Yeah. Yeah. Because what are you
because
not like allowing to flow through?
you got it.
Yeah.
100%. And it's tricky for those of us who are here to allow massive awareness to flow through us that is going to help
Mm.
propel humanity. People like you who
Mm.
we naturally have big questions. We're
Mm.
disrupting the status quo,
Mm.
and it's not comfortable,
Mm. Mm.
but there's an inner peace
Mm.
knowing that we're fulfilling our destiny. We're fulfilling what we're meant to do. That
Yeah.
that inner peace is bigger than the emotional discomfort that and the judgment that comes from other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like the thing is, it's way more. It's like it might be uncomfortable for certain parts of us, but it's way more uncomfortable to be not aligned with that. Like
I
that's
100% know that.
everything just feels so wrong when you're like trying to like we we're just saying like when everything just goes wrong because we're trying to live outside of that space. So then it's like
Yes.
okay, the more we come into that space, sure we have to kind of face these parts of ourselves, but it's like a part of us knows, like you said, that inner peace that it's like, oh right, okay, this it's like it's the trade-off, right? It's like okay, you're willing to go there, so then you get access to the peace as well.
It's right. And that's the thing is when you embrace that process and you really come to that place where it's like the discomfort is part of the process. And the more
Yeah.
uncomfortable you get, if you lean into it instead of away from it, freedom's going to come much sooner
Mm,
than if you lean away and you're just prolonging
absolutely.
the inevitable, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Which is,
exactly. Yeah.
it's
It's so counterintuitive to the way most people's minds work, where it's like the
because we've been
freedom.
taught through that system,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That
right?
the freedom has to be through this, that,
Uh-huh.
there. When it's like all of that is pulling you away from freedom, is going into that discomfort that is making you go away from here.
Yeah.
But it's like you go back into here, and as comfortable, uncomfortable it is, that's where it is, underneath that kind of, that you're trying to get away from.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's so cool. And it's also one of those things that trying to explain it to someone before they have the experience, it will
Mm.
never work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that's what I feel with, yeah, like working with somebody. It's like sometimes I can feel like, I'm okay, you for me, like I've had some teachers that really help, like going on to the topic that we're talking about today. I've had other teachers that helped me get to where I'm at with being able to hold that space for other people. And it was all about meeting, kind of exactly what we're saying today, like meeting somebody exactly where they're at. And like
Yes.
feeling, for me sometimes, that somebody, you can only hold as much space for them as they would. I don't know if this is right,
As
but the
they're
way I'm saying
willing
it
to
is
give
willing
up.
to give up,
Yes.
right? So for me, sometimes it's like, okay, I can hold the space that you're allowing me to hold, but I can feel that you actually are going to have to go through, things are going to have to fall apart for you more before we can go into like the shame, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like
And
until things break down,
yeah,
does that make sense?
it
Like,
it 100% makes sense. And when I stopped needing people to see it before they were ready,
yes,
my
that's,
ability to help exploded.
yeah, I'm
Exploded.
so with
Right?
you
When
there.
I
Yeah.
first started, I was like, come on, you can see this. If look at it this way, look at it this way, look at it this way.
Mm,
I came up with brick wall after, and I was exhausted all the
mm,
time.
mm,
And then
mm,
I was sad because I'm like, they're not getting it, but they have so much potential. God,
mm.
it was actually, I went through a phase of like, I dated two people over like a 6 year period, very like for a month at a time. Like, that's how lack of interest in
Right.
dating have. But I started dating their soul. And I was like, because once I went through the first stage of my awakening, and so it was really funny. So now I'm having a relationship with this person's soul, but it's this person who's there with me every time. And I'm like, oh Lord, that was messy. It was really funny because I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, all these deep, intense emotions and not emotions, but feelings. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, yeah, dude, I'm just here to get laid kind of thing, right? And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, this is not working either. This is a different approach.
Yeah.
So, we
Yeah.
try it in
That's
every
interesting.
way, right?
Yeah.
But when they will come to you when they're ready. And
Yeah. Mm,
the cool thing is when you hold that knowing and that vibration, then the most
mm,
incredible right people show up every time. And,
mm,
like
mm,
then, like I have clients that literally 5 years in, 6 years in, they're like, Michelle, we talk 3 times a month and you change my life every
mm.
single time we talk.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not because I'm doing it, it's because they're ready to do
Yeah.
that work. They're ready to
Yeah.
see all the things. I don't I don't have any notes before. I don't plan what I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about. I
Yeah.
sit and I feel the energy come through from their soul, from universal beings, and bam, the information is shared. And literally, it's like 15, 20 minutes. They've got a whole new awareness on life. And then we
Mm,
spend the next 15, 20 minutes talking about how that fits with all their relationships and their, careers.
mm.
And usually they're people who are running massive companies. So they're responsible for hundreds, sometimes thousands of other humans. So we talk about
Right.
how all of this awareness has the potential because they're now impacting all these other people's lives. That's the cool
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
when you let people come to you, and how do you know if they're coming? For the first 9 years, it wasn't because someone was calling me saying, Michelle, we got to work together. It's they come and they ask a question, what do you think about this? Or
Mm,
you're having a
mm,
conversation and they're like, what if this happens? You
mm.
know?
Yeah, it's I know what you mean. I like, for me, there's like the client level, like the what it looks like the working space. But it's funny how I've noticed that just because of the like, I kind of what I was talking a little bit about last time, just like friends, that because they're seeing like a different kind of
Yeah.
like vibration or frequency, then just a normal interaction, it will bring out these questions out of them that wouldn't have
And
come out in the
strangers,
past.
strangers like coffee shop, you'll be in a coffee
Right,
shop or you'll be
right,
at a grocery store or at a bookstore, you'll be,
right.
and all of a sudden someone will say something and you're like, what? When you get into like a super deep conversation with a
Yeah,
complete stranger and it's like 15, 20 minutes and it's like,
yeah.
huh, your soul feels lifted, you're moving on. It's brilliant how these things
Mm,
work, right? Like we're
yeah,
always
exactly.
it's synchronicity. It is
Yeah,
literally you're having all the reasons, all the experiences you're meant to be having to learn. And if we're coming in and we have that feeling of they're not ready, or like, they're not ready because your brain is saying you're going to have more challenges. Don't even go into that because that brings a judgment energy from you into
yeah,
them. It's
yeah.
holding
Right,
that
right, right,
space of
right,
going, they're coming. They're
right.
starting, they're questioning, and it's
Yeah.
super cool. Hold that
Mm, mm,
excitement for them instead of the
mm.
judgment that's like, oh, you're going to
That's
need to have more
true.
challenge first, you know?
That's true. Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's like they can feel that energy as well. Like when you can feel that somebody just has excitement for where you're going, that will resonate with them, and it will kind of help to alleviate what they're
The
going through.
pressure, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
judgment. Like if
That's
you don't feel judged going into a conversation, do you tend to share more?
yeah, that's the huge thing. Like with
Right?
people that are able to hold space, the more like that I interact
Yes.
with like really cool people now, because of just the way the synchronicities that are unfolding. It's like, wow, it's so fun interacting on that kind of a level. So yeah,
It is. And you got to also remember where you've been,
exactly.
right?
That's yeah, yeah.
And it's so cool. It's just for me, I just look at every single human as who are you on a soul level?
Mm,
What are you going to share with me today? What am I
mm,
going to discover about existence and humanity through you?
yeah,
Without
yeah,
even like thinking about all those things. That's just how I approach life.
yeah.
And, some people show me the awesomeness and some people show me they're having a bad day. Does it mean they're a bad person? No, they're
No, yeah,
probably experiencing something that is making them feel that way because again, humans are not bad.
yeah.
They've been put into like when your back's against the wall, you feel like you have nowhere to go. What are you going to do, right?
Mm,
So,
mm,
if I can alleviate some of that pressure, that stress, then man,
mm,
I've already done a good job at being human today, right?
mm,
Like,
mm, mm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
how are you feeling? Do you have any questions about what we talked about?
Yeah, yeah. I just had one come to mind right now that I think will be a great one. So, but because this is kind of where the question that from the last conversation, where this all
Yeah.
stemmed from, was the, and I feel like the answers are really clicking into place right now, based on what you've been sharing. But I still just want to voice it. So the for me, the interesting thing has been like about boundaries, like energetically about because that was an important phase for me, like realizing that I was kind of how to put it, like because the thing it was it I was not actually being helpful to the other person either, by not it kind of like we were just talking about, but like when you have to cut ties or something, like for me that's the most interesting, and this is where I'm learning a lot recently, is around boundaries, like how to, like we said, give as much as you can, but at the
Yep.
same time realize when are you giving out of a fear of like challenging, um like you're not doing what's authentic because of um like some out of fear or something like that. It's like
Yep.
because it's coming from the wrong space then, right? It's like,
Yep.
okay, you your mind is telling you you're giving, but the reason it doesn't feel right. So yeah, this was where the question originally came from, was it was like, okay, the energetics of holding space, sometimes it feels draining, but then clearly that's got to do with like the way that the space is being held.
You
Like there
got it.
is
It's not clean,
something. Yeah, yeah,
not clean.
exactly. Yeah,
So the really cool answer, like the really cool thing is it's so simple. It's so
yeah,
simple. And it's one of those 9 fundamental energies that's inside of you. It's the
yeah.
energy of respect.
Right. Okay.
So I don't believe in boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Because for me, boundaries has always been
Yep.
confusing, right? Because I'm
Right.
like, on one level, there's no boundaries, but then
Because
sometimes that it feels, yeah,
right,
I'm
the
confused.
energy of boundaries is I need to protect myself
Yes,
from
exactly.
you or from that experience or from, whatever it is that we're thinking we need to be protected and kept safe from.
Yeah.
When you use the energy, so here's the other cool thing. Okay, so when you use the energy of respect, when you use any of the 9 fundamental energies, they're
Mm.
the greatest bullshit detectors on the planet, which is great.
Right.
Nobody can get past you. Once you understand them, you understand how to use them. Nobody can manipulate you anymore. So you don't
Right.
need, there's nothing that you need to protect yourself from because
Right. Right.
you
Exactly.
literally are walking around seeing
Yeah.
truth everywhere, which is
Right.
super cool, right? Like
Right. Right.
if we would finally get out of that emotional belief that we have to protect ourselves, we would leap forward in massive bounds.
Mm.
But respect is about understanding that you are who you are because you're meant to be here, and
Yeah.
what how you feel is important to your journey in this moment. So if you're feeling like I need space, then I need to honor that. But it's also recognizing that if you need space from me, I just haven't come to the place where I'm feeling yet because I'm caught in my emotions where I need my own space from you.
Mm.
We get
Mm.
stuck in our emotions that tell us, oh, but.
Mm.
Respect is what they're showing me. It's the most powerful energy to transform our inner relationships because it
Mm.
helps us see clearly.
Yeah.
And, it helps us see through, like it takes that emotional filter and it just moves
Yeah.
it aside and says, okay, here's what's really going on.
Right.
And, it takes the burden of the emotional filter because, like you were saying, the emotional filter is, I don't want to hurt you, or I don't want you to hurt
Yeah.
me, or I don't want to
Yeah.
upset like, am I going to upset the whole family if I do this, or,
Yeah.
the whole, like our friendship circle, or am I going to,
Yeah.
lose my job because of this? All of these things are a lack of respect for ourselves
Yeah. That's key. Yeah.
first. So
Yeah.
here's the other really cool thing. Of all those 9 fundamental energies, you cannot offer them to someone else if you don't have it first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's click. So like exactly the conclusion that I was coming to with
Yeah.
this question as well was exactly like that's why for me boundaries like okay like the word can be it's a
Yeah.
bit of a loaded word as well, but like, it was that like realizing that the reason that it felt like too much giving was happening was because that self-respect was lacking, right? That I was rather trying
Yeah.
to meet somebody else's kind of
Where they were at
version.
emotionally
Yes,
instead
yes,
of where the energy was.
yes, exactly.
Make
Right.
sense?
And then yeah, and when I was more also willing to assert, like I don't know, assert seems a bit harsh, but uh, like respect the intuition that was coming through me. Like I need to do this, even if it's gonna piss somebody off. Then it was like, oh, then it all just kind of what you said there about respect
Yeah.
hit it on the head, right? It was like, oh, okay, we first have to see that respect in ourselves. And for me, that's where like boundaries can play a role initially until like that energy, like you said, is cultivated within us. Because if we're not going to be able to do that within ourselves if we're constantly being pulled, like you said, by the emotion
Yep.
stuff of other people. So it's like you almost have to set some level of boundaries initially to cultivate that or whatever. And then that's also been my feeling on boundaries is it's like it has its kind of, again, I think we can use different terminology there, but eventually it
We
kind of,
can, but it's also understanding, and this is what I've explored a lot, is different words have different vibrations as well.
right, right, right.
So the energy of boundaries is harsh and closed and the need for
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah.
Respect
That,
is
yeah.
open and universal. So
Yeah.
that's where I will
Yeah.
always go to the universal. It's really cool. So the other important thing is
Respect.
to
Yeah.
right? So surround ourselves with people who can hold that space and energy as
Mm,
often as possible. And so in 2020, I started a community called the Collective, the Authentic Human Collective. And we have these conversations every week. We talk about
mm,
all of this. And it was literally because I've been doing this for almost 20 years, exploring, and I would go in and I would explore the universe and learn all these things at night on like in my bedroom, laying on my bed before I went to sleep, and I'd have a friend on the phone. And then I was like, and then that friend and I went in separate directions because that was part of our journey.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, I still want to do this, but I don't want to do this alone. Maybe there's other people
Yeah.
who actually
Yeah.
want
Right.
to, like, because I get so excited because there's a moment when you
Mm,
hear universal awareness, it hits your heart, everything. It's like that sucker punch in the gut where all the things that connected that didn't make sense instantly make sense, and then you expand your
mm,
awareness. So I created this community and it's been amazing. We've like been on this journey and it's awesome, but it's really cool because we need to go through and have these conversations. I was just talking to a neighbor yesterday and we were talking about something and I said, yeah, when we were in lockdown, and she was like, holy man, I just had a huge emotional reaction. Like when we were in lockdown, when the government told us we can't leave our own homes.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's like, clearly I haven't processed that yet.
Mm,
And I
mm,
said, that's really interesting because I have zero emotional reaction to it because we've been exploring
mm.
it for 3 years. So
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
carry anything anymore. When anything is coming up, I deal with it and I move on. Like, and by
Yeah.
dealing with it means what's the truth? And I feel into the universal perspective. I don't want Michelle's knowledge. I don't want what
Mm,
Michelle's heard, seen, read. What
mm,
Michelle thinks, that's not valuable. I'm already in that
mm.
and I'm sitting in it. It's uncomfortable. I want the universal perspective, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about with healing and how to hold space for others is you're helping them not see what they think, see, or have heard or
Mm,
read. And
mm,
it's going to be challenging if they're not ready. And that's where it's exhausting. But the moment they're
mm.
ready and they're like, yep, sign me up, I want to see all the things,
Yeah.
that's where you're
That's
going
the
to
huge
make
difference.
massive,
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
transformations, right?
Yeah.
Because you know that what's waiting on the other side. Just hold that space of like, I've got it.
Mm,
And whenever
mm,
you're ready, I am right here to share it. And
mm,
and
mm,
for me, I don't hold on to it with this, I know it and I'm going to share it. I hold on to it with an excitement and joy of it's here whenever you're ready, but I'm
mm.
I'm still
Yeah.
going this way. Like I'm still going to learn
Right.
more, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to stop. And then that's where the other thing that I found when I first got into this work is, I kind of went into the spiritual world and there was a lot of people who would say, "Oh, I had this spiritual awakening," and they would continue. They had been there for 10 years, 15 years, and they were doing the same thing over and over again. They weren't learning anymore because in their mind they
Mm,
had this massive epiphany
mm.
and that's what they were meant to share with the world, but they stopped learning, which means they stopped
Yeah.
evolving, which means you can't contribute to humanity,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah. Yeah.
haven't done the work, you can't hold space for someone else, right?
Mm,
So, and
mm.
that's why it was so important for me, right, to go through all the 9 fundamentals, to learn about them and to embody them, right? From the universal perspective, not the perspective of what's love from the mind. Because
Yes.
love is
Yeah.
not, oh, you did that for me. Oh, I love you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me
It's
do this
like
for you.
personal. It's impersonal. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Love is the connection that we all share. It is
Yeah. Yeah.
literally love is the piece of the creator that's in each of us.
Yeah.
Why? So that we can recognize each other. The
Yeah.
first time I met a
With you.
universal being that was not from this universe, and we were having conversation, and I was like, whoa, like it was like still gives me chills. I was like, what is this? Like you're missing something. Like it's like a big
Mm.
black hole. I'm talking to you. I'm having a full conversation. Other humans were there. It's all
Yeah.
recorded. Like I have hundreds of hours recorded. Sorry, I'm like thinking, where the heck are they? Anyway, besides the point. But there was nothing there. There was
Yeah.
something missing. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until later, like this is like 10 years later when I wrote the book, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, now I understand. Like, and that's how awareness comes, right? Like now it's all those
Yeah.
things that I experienced, but I understood what he was missing at the time, but I didn't understand what it meant until I wrote the book. And they were like, this is what all humans have. So we can recognize each other. That is
Yeah.
what keeps us safe. So all these people who are like, are we going to be safe from ETs and safe from, yes. We're not, we
Yeah.
don't need to be safe. You instantly recognize, and then you also understand. Anyways, that's
Mm.
a whole other, we could
But
do a whole,
it's so interesting though, because I've got a friend that's like one of the few like spiritual teachers who he's young, and that like you just said, like he didn't stop at, like a lot of the other teachers that have been really helpful for me. I think that they're playing their role though, because if they went too far down the more kind of abstract stuff, then they would no longer be helping people like get to that space, and then it's like there's other
100%.
people in the other space, like everyone's playing their role. But anyways, this guy was talking about exactly that, and it was funny. It was like the first time I'd, because I was still new to this kind of this more, the ETs and the
Yep.
universal beings and stuff. I'd never explored that aspect of it. I'd explored all of the I don't know, the awakening stuff.
Yep.
And he said that exact same thing about love. So it just clicked in my mind, like the two people saying the same thing, where he was like, yeah, Earth and humans is the only place on in the universe where there's love, and that's like a human thing. And
Yep.
I
Uh,
would
it's a universal thing. So all the
okay,
planets are created with it.
right,
Everything in this universe, but outside this universe, no. Which
okay.
is, I know it's the
So so
brain.
it's
There
so
are
it's when you go out.
ETs that also have it as well. So yes,
Okay,
some
so it's a
are, some don't.
universal thing.
It's a universal thing. Yep.
But like, yeah, okay, yeah. I'd be fine.
I
I
know.
feel
It's
like I'm
like,
getting
where do we
caught on
go
sick.
here? Are we going to go down that rabbit hole? No, we're
Exactly.
almost 2 hours in again. See, this is what happens. But will we again, when you're ready, we can absolutely, like, there's again 20 years of exploring existence, evolution, and creation itself. I have all of it. And yet I'm still thirsting for more. Like nothing
Mm,
has been quenched. If anything, it's made
mm.
me thirstier, right? When you learn a little bit. And it's cool because, like you were saying, like I started with Reiki, and I remember, like, oh God, 15, 25 years ago, and going to someone. I was so interested in Reiki. Everyone was doing this thing. And this is back, when the internet was like brand new, and it wasn't like it
Right.
is now. Like it was a big deal to have a computer,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like, um, and I remember looking it up a bit, and I was like, yeah, okay, I want to try this. And then I went to see an energy worker, and she's like, the message I'm getting is you don't need it. And I was like, then I was pissed. Oh, I was pissed. I'm like, she thinks that I'm not good enough and that I won't, that there's my emotions, right? Oh,
Yeah,
poor
all the
Michelle,
mental, yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I did it anyways. And it was great because at the end of the day, it took me a few years to be like, I'm going to finally do it. But what happened was, in those 2 years, I just was upset and I was hurt. And I
Mm,
used the hurt to justify why I wasn't doing whatever I wanted to do, right? And that's the
mm,
thing. So
mm,
we hurt for different reasons. And
mm,
when our job is to help people understand their emotions, right? And how they're communicating with themselves, right? And what they're doing, like if you're not communicating properly, like I didn't know how to communicate with myself, right? Like my
mm,
family,
mm.
that was not, so I had to learn. I had to
Yeah,
learn
yeah, I'm with
to
you.
recognize all my emotions, right? And
Yeah,
understanding that
yeah,
my emotions are my biggest form of communication with myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly,
They're the
exactly.
reason that I do everything. And
Yeah,
when I, like, 15 years of studying that, oh my gosh, and I'm still learning. Like 20
yeah.
years in, I'm still learning. But 15 years, I immersed myself in understanding all about my emotions and
Mm.
mastering them. Yes, Jesus is laughing. He's like, yeah, yeah, you're a master in it. Um, Master, right? Because again, my emotional reaction is I can't say that. Then people are going to judge me
Right,
for thinking
right.
that. See, it's a
Yeah, it's
constant.
funny.
But
Isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, but it's understanding that I learned to master mine, which means that it's not that I don't have them anymore. It's that I know what to do with them when they
Yeah.
occur. That's what
Yeah.
mastery is. That's
Yeah.
self-mastery is understanding how to do and deal with whatever comes up, whether it's coming from me,
Yes.
whether it's coming from the world around me. And like universal beings have been knocking on my door for 5 months to tell me, the reason that humanity got messed up with. And I was like,
Mm,
yeah, no, but
mm,
that's
mm.
took me 5 months. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not a master. It means this is a big one and I'm
Mm.
coming to it and I'm doing all the things
Yeah.
I need to do in the
Yeah,
meantime
exactly.
to come to that place, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah, I had to bring up all the stuff that was kind of still in the
yeah,
way and then let that kind of play out until there was nowhere else to go anymore.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's what healing is. That's what holding space for each other is as long as it's going to take you, you do what you got to do, right? And
Mm,
if it
mm,
means that we can walk part of that together or all of that together, that's great. And if it means that
mm,
we have to walk parts of that separately, that's
mm.
great too.
Yeah,
It's
that's just
not
how it has to play
needing
out.
to
Yeah.
carry people with you, and it's not
Yeah.
needing to be carried,
Yeah.
and it's not needing to take people that they're not meant to be there. Because if they were, they'd be jumping in,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right. Because it would be telling them, okay, go here. And if it's not telling them that, then they got to trust what's telling them that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just saying, Kyle, keep following your heart because your
Yeah.
instincts are so brilliant and so good. And, so they're showing like you have the power to heal just by allowing yourself to listen. And
Mm,
that for you over the next 6 months is going to be super powerful because you're going to come into your own over the next 6 months through the power of listening. That's
right.
really where you are right now
Mm,
because it's one of those where your voice will become more powerful if you listen now.
okay. Yeah.
And it's not like and what they really specifically are saying, don't it's not looking for masters to listen to. It's
You're right.
listening to everyday people because
Yeah.
those are
Honestly,
the
yeah. Yeah.
ones you're going to learn more from.
Yeah, yeah, and that resonates. Like I like it's interesting whenever you share one of these things. It's like I could see that that was already like a realization forming. Like yeah,
Yep.
like
And
that's why as
that's
soon as
how
you
it
said it, like
works.
it's yeah exactly because I can feel that. I feel that when I'm engaging with somebody, it's like that through
Yes.
just like holding space,
Soul
whatever, listening.
recognition.
Yeah, then
Yes.
it does what it needs to for them. Yeah,
Yep. And it's
and yeah,
yeah. It's cool
yeah,
because your soul knows exactly what you need to hear.
right.
And my soul, and I'm open to whatever they're sharing. So I
Yeah.
don't prepare for our conversations. I have no
Yeah.
notes. I have, just little things like scratchy, like you said Sam Harris last time, so I wrote Sam Harris down and like
Yeah.
that's it. Like I don't have
Yeah.
this is the extent of my notes and I
Right.
have your name. And
Yeah.
and my notes on okay, how do I pronounce this properly? Right?
Yeah.
But that's I don't prepare
Yeah. What are those
mentally.
notes?
I
What are those?
prepare
Yeah, sorry.
energetically.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. And quest for truth because that's what you're on.
What are those? Are those just to refer to for like the next conversation, or those things that you go and like look into?
I never
Or
go. I never look.
that's what I
I
thought. Yeah.
never approach anything from the mind ever.
Right.
Um, it's funny. I have like these books everywhere. I've got hundreds of them with notes and notes. I've never gone back and read them once in the 20 years that I
Okay.
have been doing this.
Yeah.
Once it's out, and now
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
energetic, and now it's in my awareness. It is part of my wisdom.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah. I'm
don't
with you.
need to collect knowledge. So I'm having that
Mm, mm,
energetic experience. There are times like it's really funny because if for people, it's really so we have this collective, the Authentic Human Collective, and when you come into it, you have recordings of the last 3 years of
Okay.
all these calls. And I don't go back and listen. And again, we've talked about this before. I don't remember what I say because I'm in the energy
Mm,
and my
right.
brain has to be off in order to even
Yeah.
talk to you today. So, it's awkward. It's awkward trying to, I will never interview anyone because it's not what I do. I'm in the
Mm,
energy and I'm having an experience with you
mm,
and then it's done, but I will remember the energy forever because and
mm,
it's not with my
mm,
brain, it's like it's stamped on my
mm,
heart.
mm,
And so
mm,
when we talk again, there are parts I remember because the energy's coming up,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm
And
with you totally.
yeah,
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. I learned this from like my previous teacher, Angelo, who would say exactly the same kind of thing. Like he would
it's
just
amazing,
speak
eh?
from like the moment. He would always say like he doesn't know what's coming from where, but it's just the like things flowing through the moment. And there was no, yeah, it's exactly the same as you were saying. Same.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're,
amazing.
and I would
It's so
say,
much easier than the mind thinks it is. Like,
right? And that's the thing is I always say universal, it's simple.
yeah.
It's humanity that has, from that education system, deemed if it's
Mm,
complicated, it's more valuable. And
mm,
that's where we screwed it all up. So
yeah,
when
yeah,
we
that's so
allow
true.
ourselves to relax into the simplicity, truth is simple, it's not complicated.
Mm,
Our path is simple, it's not complicated. Doesn't mean it's
mm.
not going to take effort, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah,
simple. It
yeah,
is simple.
exactly.
And getting the answers is easy.
Right.
Fulfilling the part, like participating, it's going to take effort again.
Mm,
But
mm,
the answers are always simple. The solution, simple, always, right? And that's
mm.
the thing is, when you're talking to someone, if they're in the space of universal awareness, soul awareness, because it's simple, or
Right,
if
right,
they're
right.
in physical energy because it's complicated, right? It's like
Yeah.
when energy workers work with physical energy, a lot will say they're working with the soul, but 90% work with physical energy. And
Okay.
because the explanation is so complicated. It's like,
Mm,
oh, it's this and it's this and it's oh, and you've got to clear this. And if you have to clear
mm.
something more than once, you're not doing it right. That
Right,
being said, if it comes up again, it's because you didn't go deep enough. So there's a
right.
difference. So it means if something is coming up again and you've worked on the soul level, it means that there's another layer. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there was, gosh, this was like 18 years ago. And I remember working with this Hollywood big shot actress. And, anyways, and it was funny because she was like, oh, I've already worked on that. And I was like, well, if you worked on it, it wouldn't be coming up right now.
Yeah, why is it still, yeah.
So you can decide if you've already worked on it and you're not interested, then that's another way that our judgments are like, no, I've already done that. Thanks
Yeah,
anyways, right?
yeah.
You just didn't
Yeah,
go deep
exactly.
enough. So the
Mm.
universe knows, and your soul always has your back. And it's just being willing to recognize that we're in this space of receiving truth in every moment. But if we decide to block
Mm.
it, then that's our choice,
Yeah,
right? Those
yeah.
9 fundamental energies never go away. All the
Right.
ones that, like, fear is not universal. If every human on the planet did not focus on fear for 1 second of existence, it would no longer exist.
Hmm, hmm.
It takes human focus, like our energy,
Mm,
to sustain it. Fear,
mm,
judgment, there's all of them. It's
right.
actually
That's it.
quite fascinating when you,
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Though. I've heard other people talk about it in different ways, but the same thing, like
yeah,
that. It's all only here because it's like an agreed upon delusion that it has to be that way.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And for me, again, I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. It just wouldn't exist if we didn't focus on it. Like
Yeah.
and that's part of my journey was keep it as simple as possible. Even the explanations, because
Yeah.
if your explanation is too complicated, then so humans, right, learn through experience. If it's too complicated, you can't drop into the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's
You're in your
why would
brain
you?
trying to figure
Yeah.
out what the person said,
Exactly. And
right?
you
And
need,
you're
and if the whole point is to relate it to another person, then you want it as simple as possible. Like
right.
the only reason you need to complicate it is because it's coming from a place of ego or something like that, right? Like
Exactly. So if you need a degree to understand how the person is explaining it to you, it is not
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so keep it simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're doing an incredible job, and um you're they're showing me your true mission is going to reveal itself. And what I am seeing is um like the peacock, um but right now the feathers are on the ground behind you. And because this is your phase of collecting all the information. You are
Right.
in this massive phase of transformation. And, you know, yeah, you're fearless. Like you're going in, you have no fear of going anywhere. Like that's the peacock. Like he's walking and he's it's not even proud. It's just you have zero fear and discomfort about
Mm,
going into any of the spaces. But right now, your tail feathers are down and they're trailing behind you because that's the
right.
sign when you're in surrender to learning the truth about your
Mm,
own existence. And
mm,
then there'll come a time where they're showing me you'll be challenged and you'll know it because instantly your tail feathers will come up and you're like, no, no, this is who I am and this is what I've learned. And this is what I know to be true about existence itself. Because you'll
right.
be able to hold that space in a way that is unwavering.
Right.
So no
Right.
matter what judgment comes at you, no matter what questions come at you, you won't judge back, right? Which is a little
Mm,
bit of that, well, they're just not ready yet. That's judgment
mm.
back.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
be able to come from that place where it's, I see you, and there'll be zero need for anything else. It's beautiful. So
Mm,
embrace that. And that's like really
mm,
4 to 6 months. It's going to be um, very quick seeming for you if everybody else on the outside was, looking in going, oh, that's so quick, when really
mm.
this has been 14 years in the making so far. So,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's understanding perspective, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
this yeah, I can totally feel into that. Like it's like this is the kind of the last few shifts. So it appear like to be quantum on the outside, but it's like because of everything that's
You
come
because
before
of all
that.
the
Yeah,
work you've done on the inside for
yeah,
14 years. So,
yeah. Or
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
it's
Or the work
massive,
that was just happening.
right?
Like even when I didn't even feel like I was doing anything, it was, like we were saying, it was just experience that was kind of
That you needed.
informing itself.
Yep,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because your soul always has your back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so does the universe, and it's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for this incredible conversation. Thank you for being you in the world, and
Mm,
asking those big questions that contribute to humanity restoring
mm,
itself because it's
mm,
humans like you who help others
mm.
walk straighter and taller. And
Yeah.
and I want to thank you. Jesus wants to thank you. The creator also wants to thank you because of your determination, your willingness to see the truth in spite of what the world around you wants you to
Mm,
believe, that makes you a true warrior of change. Those are their exact
mm.
words. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much for like holding the space for me to receive that. Like I really I feel so lucky that how
It's
this
my
is all
pleasure. It's my
how this
pleasure.
is all played out. It's been incredible.
I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah. When there are humans like you who are open and you trust yourself and you trust the bigger picture, you know,
Mm,
this is where pure awareness and universal insights come. This is
mm.
how it happens. So
Yeah, yeah,
I thank
yeah.
you for giving me this gift on more experience, but also for everyone listening because it's a rare gift that someone can show up with such humble surrender and a willingness to
Mm,
learn in such a pure way. So
mm,
thank you. And
mm.
I do
No.
hope you'll come back. And when you have more
I'd love
questions,
to.
you send me an email and we'll get to explore more. Okay?
I'd love to. Yeah, can I make a small? You just told me whether you think it's like
No, you go right ahead.
yeah,
Tell.
yeah. Could you check in with that energy that we checked in last time, like the at the back of my neck, or what do you think?
Absolutely. It's much better now, which is interesting. Oh yeah. It must have had something to do with the dynamic and the relationships that you just sort of
Yeah,
shifted from, and where you've physically moved.
yeah.
It's funny because as much as it seemed like it was that situation, it was actually a dynamic that you've been carrying for about 25 years. I don't even know how old you are. How old are you, Kyle?
24. So
So
all
yeah,
the
but
years.
24. No, 24, but when's your birthday?
2nd of March. So
You
yeah.
just turned 24. Which
Yeah,
means you're
right.
in your 25th year. But okay, so here's the really cool thing. The moment you're conceived is when your journey starts, not the moment you're born.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that makes
So
perfect sense. So 25 years, this dynamic has been there, which is
mm.
phenomenal.
Yeah. What
And
makes it that really sorry, that really kicks
no,
into place because it was a parent thing. So it makes sense, right? It
it's makes a lot of sense.
is a dynamic
It's
that's been
it's
there
a it
since
was
I
a
was born.
belief about. Oh, well, it's funny. They're like it's a belief about who you have to be and how you have to show up for other humans in spite of,
Yeah.
what you feel. And that's really what was
Yeah.
happening is, I feel this, and they're like, I don't care what you feel. This is how it needs to happen, and this is what you need to be doing. And you're like, but that doesn't
Mm.
feel right. And so
Yeah.
you can feel it because that's also the dynamic in your relationship through COVID, through, you know, and what, like, I've had goosebumps from head to toe because it's this awareness that you keep following that. They want you to,
Mm.
like, every time it doesn't feel right, keep questioning, keep going. It's
Mm.
okay. It's not like with
Mm.
your health. It was like, no, this doesn't feel right. I need to look
Mm.
deeper. That's your
Mm.
magic. That
Right.
you're feeling. And I have goosebumps. So they're like that prickle, when you're like, nope, this doesn't feel right. That is your superpower. Keep
Right.
using it. Keep
Right.
using it. Okay? It
Yeah.
will
That
never
makes so
fail
much
you.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly what you said about the family dynamic as well. It was exactly that. It was like this final respect within myself that okay, if these people are going to keep on saying that, like not acknowledging what I'm feeling, then I like put that self-respect in place and moved away. And that was and it just needed to happen. It was
Yeah.
exactly what needed to happen. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
And then
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would happen, but I would be so fascinated because all of the stuff, the person that helped me to make that decision as well was this guy that I referred to earlier, this friend of mine, Matt. His name's Matt Garrett.
Yep.
Um, and I would be so curious if you guys had a conversation. I don't know how you do
Yeah.
that, or yeah,
Yeah. Well, if
I'll
he's interested, then I am. I
yeah.
like, I don't, and yeah, you ask him. Put us in
I would,
connection.
yeah, I don't know how he'll respond, but I would, because so many of the, like, you're
Yep.
like the two people that are saying the same things for me, or like very, like the closest kind of things,
That's
on
awesome.
that level. Yeah, yeah,
100%. I love those
okay,
kinds of conversations where we can just collaborate and just share,
yeah,
universal wisdom and also explore in the moment at the same time, right? Like,
yeah,
it's, to me, it's just incredible. And if he's open, please. Yep.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome. I'll
I
I'll
am.
propose it to him. I really hope it
Awesome.
happens because I would be so curious to see what comes of it. Yeah.
So cool. Thank you.
All
Oh,
right.
well, I thank you so much for being here. And what's the best place? Are you working with people right now?
Yes, so yeah, it's like I kind of through my YouTube channel, I that's how I guess people find me is I make
Okay.
YouTube videos, and then there's a link there if you want to book a one-on-one session with me.
Perfect.
Yeah, people can do that. And then I've also started doing like community meetings. Like, so if you join, uh, you can either join the YouTube channel through the membership, and then you get access to every week or every second week. I do like a space where
Yep.
we like, yeah,
You're
got,
doing
let
all the
people
right
share.
things, Kyle. You're doing them all. I love it so much. It's brilliant. So your YouTube channel is right underneath your name right now. Do you want to just give a verbal for those who are listening on the podcast version, not watching it on YouTube?
Oh yeah, yeah, Life with Kyle on YouTube. Just three separate words. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you again. And
Yeah.
and let me know how you're doing. Let me know how it's all coming together. I love how open
Mhm.
you are, and I love your story. Yeah. And I do
Mm.
want to hear more. I feel like we didn't even get to all the things these days, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
That amazing. Yeah, let's definitely keep in touch because I'd love to keep exploring. So for me, this has been amazing as well. Yeah.
Well, you email me when you have big questions and we'll go in and explore them. Sound good?
All right. Careful. Your emails might be busy.
I'm okay with that. You have it. Thanks so much, Kyle. I'll see
Amazing.
you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Cheers.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more, head on over to michellevickers.com. Join our mailing list to receive new episodes right to your inbox or apply to be a guest on the show. If this episode made you think of someone while you were listening, forward the link onto that person with a little note about why it made you think of them, because the greatest gift you can give another human is to see the beauty and purity of who they truly are. Until next time, stay curious.